how American clients see Ukraine. Although I'm not American, but I lived in America for more than 25 years, and I was on the other side, and I decided to actually start a team here, 2001. So it's a bit more than what they said. So I started outsourcing in Ukraine since 2001, really. First team, first guy we hired, his name was Sergey. I remember him very well. And that was in 2001, right after the September 11, unfortunately. And since then, things grew. I suffered a lot as a client in the US back through 2001 to 2005. It was very painful. Internet connection wasn't that great. No video Skype calls. It was really hard to do. All the differences. Eventually, I started to come to Ukraine and live in Kyiv, and now I am here, and I started an outsourcing company because of all the pain that I went through. So, referring to Evgen's point earlier, Jania, where you do have to have somebody in the US. In my case, I have one of my old partners and friends. His name is Mark. So he kind of represents us back in the US. Although also to Max's point, which was the speech right before me, very good speech, it does work without having to need somebody over there. You just have to focus more on your sales process and your pipeline. So definitely agree with both. Subject, how American clients see Ukraine. So that's a little bit of background, already covered that. So we have the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is good programmers, good code, not everybody, but in general, good code, very logical in thinking. I can describe a technical problem to a Ukrainian programmer and he will understand it and be able to figure out the code and the logic and do a lot without a lot of explanation on my end. So in return, me as a client, I get good value. Not always, sometimes. But I know that also Ukrainians have good, positive, can-do attitude. I never seen a Ukrainian programmer who would say, oh, that's just not possible. They always come up with ways of thinking about it. The bad. So I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend anyone, but I have to talk about the bad things so you guys can realize them and improve them, because Ukraine is a great place to have outsourcing, really, but we do have some challenges here that need to be improved. Low commitment. I've hired personally a lot of programmers here, and I can tell you, programmers would leave for $100 more. Just say, okay, somebody offered me more, and leave. And you guys have I can't really tell you how much I hate it. When I get a programmer who comes and says, oh, I took my salary, thank you very much. By the way, tomorrow I am actually leaving your company because I've changed jobs. I'm moving to Poland. Max, yes, I'm talking about you. So there's a guy who had actually 3 months to interview, get a visa, move to Poland, and didn't even think to tell me about, oh, by the way, the project that I'm working on, you need to find plan B. So low commitment. Sometimes you do have the tendency to overcomplicate. Again, back to the good, which is the logical part. Sometimes you overcomplicate things. I have a lot of stories to tell you about that, but I don't know how much time I have, so I'll keep the stories for later if somebody is interested. Risks to business continuity. So if I am running a business and I depend on 1 or 2 or 5 of your staff here, what is my plan B? And you guys have to think about my plan B. Because I tell you, as an outsourcing provider here in Ukraine, when my customers call me asking me, hey, what's going on? I tell them, don't worry, I have plan B for you. If something happened, we have another office in the Philippines or Poland, something. We have plan B. Increased risks. Obviously, the risks, like Jania mentioned earlier, you have the risks of the culture differences, the language differences, time zone differences. These are very important, and you really have to pay attention to it. And next slide, I will cover that more. The ugly. No stability, really, no stability. I know I can get very good internet connection. I know I can find good programmers, but I don't have stability. So me as an American customer, American company who wants to do business here, it's very hard for me to do long-term planning if I don't have comfort in the stability. Obviously, political situation is not very stable. Legal situation is not clear. I had to hire at least 3. I had to hire 3 different lawyers to find out information about establishing the business, the correct legal structure? Is it chip A? Is it OOO? Is it this? Is it that? No one can give me the same answer twice. No one. So we'll see. Culture, which actually refers to communication. I will also cover that. Security, obviously now in the US, you guys have to be very sensitive to that. There's a lot of issues about cyber theft, security, hacking. Ukraine is one of the top countries that starts the hacking. So as you talk to your clients are going to be concerned about their data. Are your programmers going to steal their data? Maybe you will look them in the eye over Skype and say, yes, sure, nobody will steal your data, but are you yourself sure that your programmers are not making some backup copy and selling it later? So, difficulties. We have a very important process when we start a new client. We call it the onboarding process. This one we go through, like Jania was saying and Max was saying earlier. We go through the process of training our client how to communicate with us, and training the PM or the account manager how to communicate with the client. What is the best time to communicate with the client? How many times they would like to communicate with the clients? I personally actually review every email that our PMs start to send to the client for the first 2 weeks of engagement. Before they send the email, before they hit the send button, I tell them I want to review it. I want to correct their English. I want to correct their points in the email. Sometimes the emails here, because of language difference and culture difference, in the US they come across very rude. It's not rude to you guys, you read it, it's not rude, it's a normal email, but it comes across over the side, it's very rude. It's like, no, calm down, don't, you can't tell the client, stop. So that's very important thing, the process, the onboarding process, and it trains both the client so they can respect your time and respect your energy that you're spending, and also for your team to know how to communicate with the client, because you need to give your client value. Clients, like the guys were saying, they have so many options. They don't have to come with Ukraine, they don't have to worry about the risks, the political instability, time difference, language, culture, all this, unless you guys really are providing value. So you have to emphasize that value. If I am your client, you have to make my life easier. You're not going to have to make me work harder. Your job is to make my life easier. That's what you're getting paid for. So I do wake up at night, I do wake up at midnight when I'm in the US to talk with my programmers here. But if I was the client, I'm not going to do that. If I was the client, I expect them to work my work hours, 9 to 6 in the US, in LA, which is probably around what, 7 p.m. here to 2 a.m. So whoever is going to be working and communicating with the client, it has to be part of their job description that you will be working at least 2 to 3 hours overlap. That's a must. Like Jenny was saying, our time zone is actually really good here. It's a great advantage over the Indian time zone, but we're not utilizing it much. You guys are not leveraging it. So I tell my clients, time zone in Ukraine is a sword with double edge. If you use it properly, you will gain 2 days. If you don't use it properly, you lose 3 days, especially with the time zone in Ukraine. How much time left? 5? Okay. So, here are your issues. How to solve these issues. Speak out. I tell my PMs their main responsibility with the client is adjusting client expectations. It's very important, adjusting client expectations. You start the project, everybody have some vision, and as you progress, this vision changes. The client wants to add more features, the programmers are trying to remove features, worry about timeline and complexity. So always you have to be communicating with your clients. At the very least, once a week. We try to do it daily, especially towards the end of the project. We do make daily calls actually with the client. And like I say, don't be afraid to turn on the camera. It's good, and encourage your clients, but give them advance notice. Hey, are you available for a video call? We'll just start video call, letting them know. Take notes, it's very important. Take notes, and after the meeting, send the notes. I like it a lot because it tells me, yes, you understood what I was telling you, and at the same time, it's a record. For you as a provider, it's a record to protect you. If I change my mind 1,000 times and you spend 200 hours because I can't make up my mind, you have a record to show. So definitely write it down and email it. Track and manage. enough said, I think, about the subject. You really have to track it, otherwise you don't know what you're doing. Relationships. Recently we had a new client who started, and we put a QA guy for his project, and this guy started, the client was coming to the US actually after a week or two, and the guy asked him for, hey, would you bring me something from LA? He asked him for something specific. Like, God, you don't know this guy yet. He's not your friend. He is just a client. He just met a week ago. So really, you can't ask him. And ironically, I also was in LA. I was like, why didn't you ask me? Why did you ask this new client? So it's important because of relationship. It takes time to build a relationship with your client. He's not your friend. He could be your friend a year later. He could be someone you communicate with, and you start to get a feeling of what their style is after a couple of months. But it takes time to build this relationship. And it's both professional and personal, because you talk to these people all the time. They have to feel comfortable with you. You have to be friendly, ask them about the weather, which commercial was on the Super Bowl, which was their favorite. So definitely, all these things are very important. You have to get in their head, understand their world. That's me, although I'm not very communicative or social, so you can try. And let's rock. We're hiring. I love this subject.
Do we have any questions?
Sorry, I was going to say I really love this subject, and I know Ukraine has great potential. I wish we all can get better at it, and I think these events are very important because all the people who are speaking are really giving good value. So please do ask questions.
Okay, so I'm the first one. This question here. So first of all, it's really nice, and really nice information and all the real issues addressed. Well, I would say from my perspective, some of the bad and ugly things you described, I would say most of them could be fixed by kind of some workarounds or something like that. Okay, sometimes we cannot, fix a political stability or legal, environment. But okay, that's kind of more or less everyone knows how to fix, right? But regarding this low commitment issue and high turnover issue, right? I think everyone in Ukraine dealing with this problem. And you know what? It'd be interesting to hear your vision. What is the root cause of this issue, right? Because for me personally, the situation looks similar to something we could see in in India, like some people just change their jobs, getting double of their salary, switching to a new job, and every 2 weeks, really moving from one office on the same street to another office on the same street, and so on, right? Mm-hmm. So I would say that probably there is some impact caused by the fact that in Ukraine we don't have a legal practice for for some fixed duration employment contracts, right? So everyone can get a new offer for a new job and just leave in 2 weeks, and this is it, right? So I think that probably this is one of the main factors which affects the situation, right? So this really creates such a attractiveness of the country. Why? Because you can really quickly build a very nice technical team just spending extra few dollars, but you cannot.
Excuse me. Yeah. Do we have a question here?
Yeah, sure. So the question is sorry guys. Yeah. So the question is, what's the main factor of this low commitment issue?
Look, again, my background is programming, so I am a programmer for a long time. Programmers are interested in 3 things: interesting project, interesting team, good team I should say, and good money. The programmers most of the time are not money driven, but they like to be appreciated. So if somebody's offering me the salary, it's usually I feel appreciated more. So the reasons I think people have high turnover in Ukraine, and I suffer from this, I have a team, I do have high turnover, so we're constantly hiring. It's not only about money. Maybe the example I said over $100 was an exaggeration to illustrate the point, but it's really those 3 factors together: good team, good project, good value, feeling appreciated. Sometimes the programmers, as they grow in their skill set and they turn from junior to senior, at least in their head they think they are senior because, oh, I know C# for 2 years now. Really pet peeve of mine. they get bored from the project and they say, you know what, I want something new. It's really, they get bored. So somebody comes, offers them $100 more, it's almost the reason of switching. That's one problem, is that the projects are maybe taking too long and the programmers get bored. Another option is we do have a lack of good programmers in Ukraine. There's a lot of people who believe they are middle and senior levels, and they add server redirect. Anybody? URL redirect? Programmers who you do redirect? Very simple question. You ask a guy, how do you implement redirect? Senior guy, don't know the answer. First answer they give you is in code. It's like, oh, you can do server redirect, response redirect. First thing should come to mind is an IIS setting, if that's really the solution. It takes 3 seconds. But you wouldn't know that unless you suffered enough to be a senior. Programmers here come work 2 years and they think, oh, I'm a senior, and they move on. And we don't have enough programmers, I think. So we need more programmers.
One more question.
Real quick again. Great presentation, very informative. I like that. And from your experience, what would be the top 3 concerns Americans or your European customers have when you establish the communication for the first time? Let's say you just got the prospect on the phone, or you're just you're sending a message. What would be the top 3 concerns? Something that he can say, or maybe something in the back of his mind that he's not sharing. So top 3 things that he thinks about Ukraine, or top 3 reasons why he would not deal with you. Like
first thing, definitely language. Okay, language. They movies and all the stereotype people show the. I don't need to say it, but language is one concern. Second concern, especially recently, is political instability. They always ask, actually, as you all probably have heard, Ukraine, oh, that's Russia. No, not Russia, it's Ukraine. I know how annoying it is to do that. So second is the political, and the third, security concerns. Am I going to get hacked? When they get an email, or if we build a page and a programmer forgets one Russian character and Google says, do you want to translate this from Russian? People there panic. It's like, well, why is it in Russian? Am I being hacked? So, and it happens more than people like to admit it. So, thank you all. This is a really great event.